Today's guest on a Life and a Living podcast in the series of Leading Through COVID is the most extraordinary lady, Sepi Saidi, who is the founder and also the president and CEO of SEPI Inc., which is a engineering firm that is based in North Carolina and has reach around the southeast of the USA. Now, Sepi, as I said, is the most extraordinary lady and has won multiple awards and Business Person of the Year a number of times, but her organization has also won multiple awards. And her background is that she came from Tehran, set up the business and has built this huge 350 plus size business, very, very much in a man's world. And she talks about how she has managed through that. But I think you will find it fascinating to hear how Sepi has led her business through COVID, the steps that she took, but also the way she talks about the importance of culture and the way that she talks about the importance of behavior and the importance of values and how that has helped her to build an extraordinarily efficient and effective leadership team that, you know, can withstand market corrections and indeed the recent COVID challenges that is facing the business. And what she talks about is just wonderful, wonderful lessons for us all to embrace in terms of how you can lead a business through a significant challenge. So I really, really encourage you to sit back and listen to the very, very fascinating Sepi Saidi. Sepi, thank you so much indeed for joining us here in A Life and a Living to talk about leading through COVID. It's a great pleasure to have you here.
Thank you, John. I'm very happy to be here.
That's fantastic. Before I get into talking about leading through COVID, I just want to talk a little bit about your business. I mentioned it in the intro, but just to give some context to it, when you came to the USA from Tehran as a student, you qualified. Then in 2001, you set up SEPI Inc., which I think now is about 350 employees. You're engineers, but you're more than that. You're landscape architects. You do a lot of other things. You've got environmental scientists in there as well. So multidisciplinary. But, you know, you've won multitude of awards, both you personally and also the business. And I'm just really curious that in a very male-dominated industry, as a woman leading a company, you have by any measure been extraordinarily successful. I'm just wondering, being a woman in a very male-dominated industry, did you find that particularly challenging? And what were the issues that you felt you had to overcome?
Thank you, John. And you're correct. Everything you said about the firm and our growth, and we're going to be 20 years old next year. A great deal of work we do for infrastructure design in the Southeast. So we have expanded into multiple offices now outside of North Carolina. We're in South Carolina and we're in Florida. And we have a big growth plan ahead of us. To answer your question about being a female in a male-dominated industry, it is difficult. There's no doubt about it. And I think the difficulty starts with the relationships that are not the typical type of relationships men are used to. They have a lot of common conversations around football and basketball in the United States. That's a big of a conversation that helping build those relationships naturally becomes easier because they have a lot more common ideas. If they play golf in the South, sometimes people do a lot of hunting together, fishing together. And so a big part of the problem, which I call barrier to entry, comes from the ways that I have to build relationships that has to be a lot more intentional, and it takes a lot of time. And I had to have, of course, a lot of relationships in North Carolina. I've been in industry for many years, but I had to build them one at a time. One, to get to know that individual, they get to know me, we find something in common, whether it's our children, but if they like food or restaurants. So it takes a lot longer to build those relationships. That becomes much easier when we sit around and talk about everything that we have in common. So it has been more difficult and takes much more effort, and you'll be a lot more intentional to be able to build relationships.
Yeah. And I can understand that when you're talking about from an external perspective, building relationships with potential customers or people who can, be in a position to introduce business to you. But then in terms of building a business as a female leader, building a business in a very male dominated industry, as I said, as a leader, did you find that challenging, or was it just something that you just found just very natural? And was it the same process of building the relationships?
So I think building a business in my industry, building a business is fine, recruiting top talent. The talent is what my business is all about, is the type of folks, engineers, scientists, surveyors, and technicians that I'm able to recruit that makes a difference. So for me, that was more difficult at the beginning. And the way that I was able to overcome it was by being very clear about my vision, being very clear about where I am trying to take this company, and being very clear about our growth strategy. Because I knew that a lot of talented folks and are also seasoned professionals in the industry, they become attracted to the vision of a leader and get attracted to the culture of a company and where they're going. So I made a big emphasis from the beginning, and I continue to do so. So I think that if you ask majority of the employees in the company, they would say, why did you join SEPI Inc? They would say that I'm very excited about the vision of the company, and I'm very excited about the culture of the company. And I think that is true in every business. I think that was the key to my success. I was able to get folks excited about what I was excited about, and I was genuinely excited. So we would see this excitement, which I still am excited about, growing in the Southeast, so forth. When they could see that authenticity and the excitement and the vision, then it became easier.
Yeah, I think that's a really powerful point, because it does point to the whole, the concept of leadership, as opposed to managing, but the concept of leadership, of being really clear about the vision and the values. And I know that SEPI Inc., the values are hugely important, because that determines the culture that you have in the business. So I think that's really interesting. So people are buying into that vision. But coming back to the subject of kind of leading through COVID, which was kind of the originally why we said we would talk. One of the interesting things about SEPI Inc. is that, we talk about COVID being a time where many people are fearful, people are concerned, people are worried. But, you mentioned it there. You go out and you made acquisitions in Florida, at the very, very start of this process. I mean, that's gutsy. And that's making a big statement about how you see the future.
That's very true. It is very gutsy. And I definitely appreciate that about my leadership. It's always been, and courageous is something that is really important to me. Having courage in life is genuinely something that I'm very committed to. And I think for me, I saw COVID as a obstacle that is a part of growing a business. Life brings many challenges. I think if any organization has a meaningful and truly authentic culture, and it has really strong values, you will get impacted by obstacles. A recession, is it COVID or something else? You certainly get impacted. But if you're true to your vision and your culture, you come out of it, really come out of it stronger. And it has always been the case for me. And I would tell that many other business leaders have had the same experience. The big challenges really tests you. It tests your values. It tests your culture. It tests your vision. Are you committed? Are you going to sit back? Are you going to shrink? Are you going to retreat? And I think those are the times that when you're tested and then you still keep going and you modify and you adjust, which is really important. You have to adjust, but it makes you stronger. And I know it is going to make us stronger. We start because of COVID. It was a real testament to our culture because folks went home, a ton more autonomy. Of course, I never had believed in micromanaging people or having an organization that individuals need to be looked over. I mean, we don't need to hire people who need to be looked over. And I would say that we need people who know their goals, know what they're doing, and we support them and encourage them to. When we went home, that was not a problem for us. Everybody went home. Our infrastructure was strong. Our IT was strong. And the main thing through COVID that I made a huge priority was increased communication. Increased communication. So I call it death by Zoom or death by go-to or something. So we were having many, many more meetings, and I did internal communication. I would send weekly letters. I honestly struggled to do it over the 20 years, even yearly or weekly, but I was sending it weekly, and then we turned it into monthly. So the external communication, internal communication, not external, was huge for us trying to go through COVID and being really honest and being genuine about the challenges you're facing. I feel that it resonates with people. You share, you tell them it's tough.
But it's interesting that, I mean, when you're talking there about your vision and you're saying that, you know, whether it's a recession, whether it's COVID or whatever happens, it's a real test of your vision, and you know, SEPI Inc. You stayed true to it. Okay, you may have had to take a few detours and a few changing in direction, but you kept absolutely true to your vision. And I think that's a very, very powerful message. But when you come to the practicality of it, I mean, the nature of your business, you're kind of out on other people's sites and doing all sorts of things. So when the adjustment came and everyone said, okay, you've got to now everybody work from home. How, I mean, your organization is not kind of, a handful of people. It's a large organization with hundreds of people. How did the business move quickly to adjust? Because you didn't have a ton of time to actually prepare for it.
Yes, that's an excellent question. The way we adjusted very quickly in a matter of 24 hours was every one of our business units, we have environmental, for example, is a business unit, or highway design, transportation. So each one of those business units has a lead. I got together with all of those business unit leaders and with our executive team. And we said, you lead. I am not going to come into your business line and try to lead that. We trust you. People need to go home and you lead. And that's is something, other piece of the business, the way I run it is I'm very entrepreneurial. I want folks who are entrepreneurial to be in the company. So I want them to be also brave and be open and be positive and the same values we share. So they had the power. I didn't have the power. We communicated, you manage this. Calm people, explain to them so everything's okay. Tell them what do they need. Because everybody doesn't have a home office that's comfortable.
Absolutely. Yeah.
That's another real obstacle. The many people just don't have a comfortable necessary chair they could sit on for 8 hours. I mean, you could sit in it, have a dinner, or you have sofa to watch TV, but a work chair. So we had to work through that. People comfortable in their home place to take their chairs from office. Take your chair, take your monitors, take your monitor handles. What do you need for your office to be comfortable? And another thing that I did very quickly was starting. So we went home on March 16th, and by May 1st, I opened the office with the protocol. of folks, because I knew there are folks who at home just don't have the privacy, the space, the comfort to be able to come in. So we very quickly, I opened the office with the protocol, and we established the protocol, we communicated it, and let folks who needed to come to the office come to the office. And we got about maybe 24 takers, not a whole lot, but it helped a good bit of folks who just needed to be in the office because they didn't have that at home.
Yeah. And I mean, when you see, kind of look at that, okay, so a small number came into the office. I mean, at some stage, which, you know, God only knows when that would be, but at some stage we will get through the pandemic, and no one has a deadline for that just yet, unfortunately. But how do you see the working environment changing as a consequence of COVID?
I see it changing, absolutely, significantly change. And the change I see is for us to become much more comfortable and trusting with remote working, flexible hours. A lot of our meetings, we don't want to travel as much for some of our meetings, which is going to save us time. It's going to in the airline industry, unfortunately, but it is going to save us time. So I see a lot more, and we are going to do it in our office, a lot more intention towards that flexibility. So if folks want to work from the office 2 days a week and home 3 days, vice versa, we're going to be flexible with that. We may designate certain days of the month when we want folks in the office. If we have our monthly meetings or lunch and learns or very other group gatherings, so that we still preserve the connection and culture and communication. But we also may turn some of our offices. We just moved actually last year to an open office space where we have no individual offices. I'm the only one who has an office. Everyone else was in our workstations. So we had already done that, and I have been a huge supporter of open office space. So we already had that in place, but we're probably going to have even more open as far as the concept of hoteling, where there may be spaces where people have locker rooms. They put their items in the locker room, and the days that are in the office, they come and sit where it's convenient to them. So it's not necessarily a workstation designated to one person. I think I'm sure there's going to be a lot of creativity around that moving forward.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the benefit for your employees, Sepi, is that as somebody who has seen your offices, they are beautiful. So they're a lovely environment for people to work in. So I'd imagine quite a lot of people will be quite looking forward to getting back to your offices because they are stunning.
I have to tell you, John, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I have to tell you, the way that I am thinking about this is not necessarily every business leader, because I know I was talking to some other businesses, and they went the other way and created more individual offices because they wanted people to be protected. But I told one of my colleagues who did that in his office, and created more individual offices. I told him, I said, you know what? The way you're acting shows it's a generational gap. Yes. And you're not going to be you, and that generation, our generation, may not be in the workforce 15 years from now. The folks who are coming up are going to think very differently. So no matter how conservative you feel that you need to protect people, in 50 years, then the next generation is going to set their own rules, and they're going to do their own thing.
I think actually just on that point, I think it's a very interesting point that you make. I think that, you know, one of the really fascinating challenges in business today is that probably for the first time, there are almost kind of 4 generations working in the workforce at the same time, and they have got very, very different experience, obviously, but they've also got different outlooks. So you know, going to individual offices, I would be, if I was a betting man, I'd say if you were having that same conversation in a year or 18 months time, I think they might be taking some of those offices down. I think that could be a move that they would make. Yeah.
Yeah, I think somehow there's a human tendency in some generations where they feel like they were the most amazing generation. They had it all figured out. And everybody who doesn't think like them, they're doomed. They're not going to beat it, and they get all worried. Why are they doing this? And I have always been about looking at the history throughout civilization. We have evolved to a better place. We have evolved to a better place. So I would bet on the other generations that are coming up behind us more, that they will be more creative and more innovative and more advanced. That's how I've always felt about how we live in this world.
Yeah. And I think also, just going back to your point about values, I think that the generation that are coming into or entering the workforce now, I think what they are looking for is joining an organization that, as you say, where there's clear vision, there's clear values, they're part of building something greater. It's not a job for them. They don't look upon it in the same way that I would have looked at when I started my career. I wanted a job and I turned up and I did what I was told, initially anyway. But, you know, certainly the generation coming in, they want to be part of something that is making an impact. And I think that's what you're doing, you know, in SEPI Inc. Just curious, Sepi, that when you look back over the last number of months, which has been a change for everybody, what would you say were the biggest challenges for you as a leader and manager of people, and also for you personally?
You know, it has been very tough. It has been really tough because, first of all, because I'm an extreme extrovert. I love being out there and meeting and connecting and uncovering opportunities. So personally, at the beginning, it was really nice. I'm going to talk about personally. I liked it. Less traveling, not many evening functions. If you're doing it, it's all at home. I created a flower garden because I had extra time. I didn't have commute. So at the beginning, it was kind of fun and interesting, and it's different, and like the whole new. Then it became tough because it was the isolation became very hard, and not having that same connection with people. So personally, that would be difficult. But I would try to pick up something new, get a new hobby, or figure something out, or spend more time with a few friends that I didn't have time for, which has done very well for me. So I think that personally, that was difficult. Not being connected to the staff was very difficult for me, because I go to other offices, I meet them, I would ask them how is their family doing in person, you know, going individually to lunch or get a coffee. So that individual connection with the staff was very hard for me. And I think it was very hard for them because they felt uncertain. The uncertainty of the future was making it very difficult for everybody. The way I dealt with it personally, I started from the very beginning. I started looking at this as a long-term problem or situation. I did not think we're going to be good in September 1st or August 1st. I said this is going to be here at the minimum because we need a vaccine and it has to be distributed and all on and on. So that helped me a great deal. With that looking long-term and facing it long-term. Mentally, I started changing how I was thinking. And I started conveying that to everybody in the office. I said, be prepared to be home for a year. Be prepared. Because a great deal of time, we get so disappointed when we want this thing to end January 1st. And January 1st comes around and we're still home. And that's really hard emotionally. So I created that for our staff. The many challenges was happening because those who had small children working from home became challenging. And the way that I decided to deal with that was, again, early on, say, we're not making it mandatory to come into office until January. And probably I will say that in 1st of December, I would say that we're not going to come back to the office until June 1st. So people can manage their time. And the other way that we're helping our team members, staff members, is creating more flexibility, allowing them to be flexible. If focusing on the deliverables and focusing on the goals for those who are not on the job site outside, but who are internal, to tell them, if you can be flexible, you don't have to be, just achieve the goal, meet your milestones. If you need to take a break in the middle of a day and help your kids with a homework, it's okay. We're going that flexibility and that communication and setting the expectation was the three things that helped us. But it has definitely been difficult for me and everybody. It's unusually unusual situation.
Yeah, I think that, you know, what we've rediscovered and probably confirmed to all of us is that we are as human beings wired to connect to each other and not necessarily electronically, and that is a challenge. So before we wrap up, I was to ask you to look back over the last, 7 months, whatever it is, of COVID. If you had your time over again, would you do anything different?
That's a very good question. When I just first think about it, nothing comes to my mind that I would do anything different. I can't think of anything that would have been, which is, I'm sure there should be something, but I just don't see anything that I would have done differently.
But
And
yeah, but I think it's important. I think that it's sorry. I think I just cutting across you there, but I think it's interesting though that you can say that, because if there were big gaps, those big gaps would have highlighted themselves in terms of issues. So I think the fact that there's nothing that comes to mind is very much a kind of confirmation that, okay, nothing is ever perfect, but that the important things that you did, that you got them right. And I think it's a credit to you and your leadership team that you're able to say that.
Thank you. I agree with you. I think we reacted extremely well. And I can't speak enough about the culture of a company. I know the word is sometimes overused, and I hope that anybody who listens has a good feeling about what that means. And I always say the easiest to think about culture, how you feel when you walk into an office and work there and play. But it was a big testament to our culture. And it made me focus even further into putting more and more and more emphasis on our culture, and making that it's really paramount to success of a business. I cannot speak enough of it, but I think that was the key ingredient for us when we faced COVID.
Well, I think that's a powerful place to finish, because I think, when you're talking about culture, culture is your values coming alive, and that's what it is. And I know that that's something that is both personally and professionally very important to you, Sepi. But Sepi, listen, I want to say thank you very much. This has been great. It's been lovely talking to you. It's great to hear the message that you have, and there's so many takeouts for people listening to this. So Sepi, thank you so much indeed for being part of a Life and a Living podcast today. It's been a real honor.
Thank you, John. I really appreciate it. And it's always a pleasure to talk to you. Thank you.
Take care.